Hey everyone, it's Tom, and welcome to the live launch of the Ariane 6 for the very first time after more years in development hell than Guns N' Roses' Chinese Democracy, which is a lot to say the least. As you can see on the screen up in the top right hand corner, Issa's feed is running, and we are just under half an hour away from possibly watching this thing take flight. Years and years and years this thing has been in the making, and it's been a full year since the Ariane 5 launched for the last time. In fact, that was my last proper rocket launch live stream, if you remember, all the way back in July of 2023. The Ariane 5 is still one of my favourite rockets of all time. Can the Ariane 6 beat it out? We hope so. Good evening to everyone. Julian, Ross, how you doing, guys? Let's say this is more just a relaxed watch along. Let's see what happens here, but everything's looking good. Keeping an eye on all the various feeds that we have open, and we can see that there was a slight ground issue earlier on this evening, which has delayed this stream by a whole hour. But hopefully those issues have been ironed out. We were seeing earlier on that the rocket is fueled. It's ready to go. So yeah, in about 25 minutes, we should be able to light this candle and witness another launch. Obviously the exciting one earlier on this year was the SR-75 from High Impulse. And that was great. But this is a heavy lifter. It's a big, big rocket, and I can't wait to see it take flight. If you've been following along with me on X, you'll know that there are still little niggles that I have with this rocket, because as exciting as it is, and as much as Europe really needs this rocket, it badly needs it. It's got 80 customers waiting for this thing to take flight. 80 customers after years of backlogs. But it doesn't exactly fit in line with new space, It's not reusable. It's not recoverable. This is an old-style rocket. It's fully expendable. And, it very much fits in with the Ariane 5's model. It's got those, in this configuration, it's got those two solid rocket boosters on the side of it, in what's called the Ariane 6-2. And yeah, little kind of fun fact, the naming of this rocket, it's 6-2, it's not the Ariane 62. They really need to do something, add in a little hyphen there, because it can be confusion. It can cause confusion, it can be confusion. It's a good start. Ross, the probability of complete mission success on this first attempt, I think they estimate it at around about 75%. This is not SpaceX's iterate and try again, iterate and try again. This thing has been worked on for years and years and years. It very much follows the previous models of the Arianes and NASA's development strategy. And even with the likes of ULA's Vulcan, they very much build and test along the way before even putting this thing on a pad. But the hot fire tests last year, once they eventually got round to them, they went off without a hitch, a few background issues. But I think 75% is a fairly good number for the probability of success for this thing. And you can see it standing on the pad there. We've got it's not exactly the most clear day in the world, but, as far as South America goes, on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, it's looking fairly good. Those clouds are nice and bright. And it fits in line with kind of, the launches that we've seen from this spaceport before. Perhaps the best spaceport in the world. I don't know. Sound off and let me know what you think. Do you prefer this, or do you prefer something at Kennedy? Or, turning to UK, are you going to prefer Saxavord when it's up and running? Because, of course, I can't run a stream without talking about the UK space industry. And I'm sure we'll get there. But, yeah, I'm glad to see there's some confidence among you. And hey, Okies, how you doing, my man? Jim's confident. Ross, yeah, good point. If they don't make any money off of this thing, if it's not successful, then the future of European spaceflight is very much in doubt. But yes, Saxavord is the greatest spaceport in the world. And it will be once it's finished. We do have some kind of info and stuff about the spaceport there. But if you watched Angry Astronaut, you know he was up there just this past week, and he's got some cool rundowns. A bit of a closer view and stuff that we were seeing, 3 or 4 weeks ago from RFA's first hot fire test. But hey, Gav, nice of you to join in. Welcome. Thank you. And thank you all for choosing to join in with me. We know there's probably about 100 different streams out there today. Loads of information coming your way. But for me, it's basically, this is a giant bloody rocket. And hopefully it's going to fly. But yeah, going back to the delays, it has cost Ariane Space quite a lot of money. It's cost the European Space Agency quite a lot of money. Obviously, we had the pandemic, and then we had Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and let's call it what it is. The start of that war has really hampered stuff because, a lot of these kind of components, the manufacturing is done in Ukraine. We've seen that with our home soil launchers as well. Say, Skyrora's owner, CEO, Vladimir Levikin, is from Ukraine. And we know that the bulk of the manufacturing, of the steel is done there. What's not 3D printed in Cumbernauld comes from Ukraine. And the same goes for Ariane Space. They're one of the Ukraine manufacturing industry's biggest customers. At least they were for the Ariane 5. But the delay in getting this rocket off the ground has left Europe in quite a tight spot. There's, no provision of Russian Soyuz rockets anymore. The Vega was horrendously delayed as well. And Europe really needs a heavy lifter. Because in the interim, we've seen ESA having to go to SpaceX. Not that they name them for some strange reason, but that's what they're having to do because SpaceX has the monopoly in the space industry right now. So to get Europe back on track, we need the Ariane 6. Whether it's in its 6.2 configuration or the larger 6.4, which can take heavier payloads to higher orbits. This thing it's just got to go. Gav, it really needs to launch. It has to go well. So the pressure on these guys right now is going to be insurmountable. I genuinely, desperately hope that in about 20 minutes' time, it takes flight and it works. It's a success. So, but the cool thing is, these engines in particular, the Vulcane 2.1s, which is an upgraded version of the Vulcane engines that were on the Ariane 5, some of the most powerful rocket engines on the go right now. But those solid rocket boosters, we need to see what they're going to do because in testing, they look like they have some kick for being the size that they are. They're comparable to the space shuttle's boosters. So I am desperately wanting this thing to fly. I really am. The 6.2 as it is right now, and you can see there's some handy infographics dotted around the screen for you. Right above my head, you've got, if you can see it, if you're watching it on a desktop or on a TV, it's got breakdowns of the actual rocket itself. To the immediate right of me, we've got a cool little article, obviously, for those that don't know where French Guiana is, and then another breakdown of the rocket itself. And to the furthest right, we can see the payloads on this thing, because, yes, this launch actually has payloads on it. It's not just a demonstrator. It's going to fly things into space. Hopefully, they're all small satellites, various kind of different CubeSats. You can see the 3Cat4 and the IST-SAT-1. They are 5x5x5 sort of picosats. And then you've got the kind of the larger ones, the Curium 1 and the OOV Cube, as I'm going to call it. They're all tech demonstrators, Earth observation satellites, things like that. They may not be the most exciting satellites that have ever flown on a European rocket, but at least if it can say that it successfully put something to space today, then even better. So, obviously checking the feed here, and everything is still looking good with just over 15 minutes on the clock. You get a nice kind of handy overview of the spaceport in French Guiana and its development. It really is. It's huge. But one interesting thing to note as well, it's not just the European spaceport that's there. There's also the Russian spaceport, or at least there was, because ESA have that back. And it's going to be the home, at least south of the equator, for Rocket Factory Augsburg. They have launch sites planned right across the world, obviously including Saxavord, but when they eventually get their RFA-1 Max version, they will look to fly it from South America. So this place is, it's going to hopefully see a hell of a lot more activity over the coming year or so than it has done. It's basically been stagnant for a year, and it's such a shame because it's an amazing facility. But this 6.2 configuration of the Ariane 6 is going to put approximately 4.5 tons up to geostationary transfer orbit when it finally gets the go-ahead to do so. Roughly, low Earth orbit, we're talking about just over 10 tons. So, again, heavy lifters, the Ariane 5, the size of satellites, you're talking the James Webb Space Telescope and things like that. This is what the Ariane 6 has got to live up to. It's got to put these payloads into orbit, particularly with bigger constellations that'll be required and further deep space missions that Europe have planned. It's just got to happen. Obviously, with the launch of JUICE last year, there will undoubtedly be follow-up missions to that from the European Space Agency. So, like I said, there's about 80 customers just waiting in the wings, ready to see this thing take flight in about 14 minutes' time. If it works, they will be a happy bunch. So, hopefully, let's see this thing fly. And let's check it out a little bit more. Let's go over to here. I don't know. What do you think? It's a good-looking rocket. It is. For all we talk about being old school, fully expendable and everything else, it's still a good-looking rocket. All of the Ariane rockets have been good-looking rockets, going all the way back to the very first one. Obviously with British tech involved, but the Ariane 6 here, it's, say what you want about French design. I don't know. French cars, French rockets, they've got away with things. This is cool. And this is one of my favorite shots right here. The control center down at the spaceport here is just fantastic, isn't it? This massive kind of glass-fronted or glass-behinded mission control operations center. Much bigger view, you could argue, than at Hawthorne, the likes of what SpaceX have got. And it affords you views of these giant screens and all the telemetry data that, ESA have got. Whether we will get some good onboard camera views, that's what I'm interested in, because if you remember with the Ariane 5, you would have fantastic, amazing views of the actual launch itself, but after stage separation, it would all be computer-generated graphics based on telemetry data. I'm really hoping that they have learned over the past year and taken a tip from SpaceX's book about having onboard cameras or something at least, so that we can get amazing views of this rocket in space like we've never had before. Will they do that? I don't know, but something kind of says, if they haven't gone to the kind of development leap of a reusable, recoverable, at least, rocket, then would they really have bothered with putting, 4K or HD cameras on the top of this thing? Let's wait and see. It's going to be interesting to watch it all play out for sure. And again, especially after years and years of delays, it's quite unbelievable in many ways that this thing even got off the ground. It's quite unbelievable that we're 4 years down the line from when this thing was first supposed to launch. But I suppose that's what a global pandemic and a war in Eastern Europe will do to your rocket. So, yeah, great shots of mission control. We'd like to see. And it's good to see everyone is looking fairly relaxed there. ESA President Joseph Aschbacher, earlier on, if you saw him on X, he was posing beside the Ariane 6. He's pumped and ready for this launch to go. So, all signs are pointing down. Just a quick feed of the info here. About sort of 10 or so minutes to go, and nothing from ESA to say that there's any further problems, which is fantastic. Weather is looking good as well. Yeah. Still no lightning risk. Fantastic. Let's pump this feed up. Yeah, you can see that with the clouds, but they look full, but they're not dark. That's a good sign. Still green across the board. Still green across the board. Don't know if you guys heard that. If this audio's coming through. It's going to potentially rain so hard that it's going to melt the rocket. But that's a new one. So below 10 minutes, the count is still going. This is all looking good.
Best conditions for the mission and for safety reasons. And we also look for lightning risk.
Yes, that's important too. And how do we find out about the weather?
So here we see the weather station here in Kourou. And they are launching weather balloons carrying instruments that send back information on atmospheric temperature.
Yeah, Gav, let me know if the audio is coming through now.
And at the same time, we also have sensors around the launch base and at the coast for wind and for lightning. And here we have a look at the launch pad. We can see that we have four huge lightning masts.
I almost wasn't able to go live
in the case of lightning, but of course,
because
once we lift off,
OBS was not playing ball. It just was not playing ball, and there was a real risk that I wouldn't even be able to jump on at all. So I'm glad that it's at least worked out, which is good. And you can see the helicopter still circling by. We know that if you stay on X, you'll see some great shots of the Ariane 6 on the pads. They're going to make for fantastic looking thumbnails for those that will absolutely undoubtedly give you a rundown
Of the main
of this launch.
launch campaign.
So about 8 minutes to go. Come on, fingers crossed. Let's pray to the rocket gods that it's going to happen.
A brand new cargo ship, which is called the Canada.
Yes. This is awesome. It's awesome shots of that boat. They ship the rocket across the world. I love it. And just look at the size of this thing.
The horizontal assembly of the
as it goes into the
main
integration
episode.
facility
And
in
we also
Guyana.
connect the fuel connectors, for example. So what we see here is actually the ULPM. It means the upper stage that is rolled in first. And once we see here both stages being mated, And once this is done, we open the doors towards the launch pad, and we have an automated guidance vehicle that actually rolls completely by its own the 800 meters to launch zone, where then the central core, as we call it.
Yeah, I mean, these views are mostly what we've been getting over the past year. As we await this launch, we have seen it roll in and roll out of the vehicle assembly building, the high bay there. It's been variously mated and unmated. It still never gets old. I love watching rockets come together, and there you can see the payloads on the rockets. These test payloads, these small satellites. Those kind of like 8 CubeSats all in their satellite bus as well. I just love it, and I loved it last year. The fairing sizes as well, they are comparable to the fairing sizes on the Ariane 5. Ariane Space has a kind of tried and true tested fairing dimension, so how that's translated over to the Ariane 6, it probably made their lives a whole load easier. And it's a fairly standard set of fairings. It splits vertically down the middle into 2 halves, and they're going to both burn up in the atmosphere. For this rocket here, the 6.2 configuration, the fairing is 14 meters tall. For the 6.4, the fairing is slightly larger at 20 meters tall. They're 5 and a bit meters in diameter, as is the rocket body itself. So you can fit a fair amount of volume in that fairing. Jim, yeah, I think I would. I don't think I'd be able to contain my smile walking around that thing. It is a properly big rocket, isn't it? It is. It's about 60 meters tall in basic configuration, 80 meters tall for the larger configuration. And 5 minutes off, we're going to get one of the go-no-go polls.
Our range operations manager, Raymond Boyce, has announced the final 5 minutes of the countdown. A very, very
fantastic.
Time. We call it
I guess that's the one thing with operations here at French Guiana. Everything is in French, and they don't subtitle it for us. So thank goodness, as we see the team cheering on, thank goodness we have the commentators in the background to tell us what they're saying, because they're quite stubborn, aren't they? But it's cool. It kind of makes for a different vibe for their launches. Again, with SpaceX, we're so used to the shouty team at Hawthorne. They're so animated and they're lively and they're loving life. And, this European team, full of multinational individuals, they're concentrated, but they're speaking in French, which is terribly handy for us. Yeah, you're right. It's... Yeah, Gab, it does. It looks insanely similar to the Ariane 5. It's just these solid rocket motors, they are shorter. And if you line up the Ariane 5 and the Ariane 6 side by side, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. And certainly, when you look at it from a bottom up view with just those 3 engines, yeah. You'd struggle to probably tell which rocket it actually is, because it also looks like the LVM-3 from India. All very, very similar looking rockets, except India obviously has the 2 engines at the bottom there, which is different from the Ariane 5 and 6. But yeah, again, if it didn't have the Ariane group, CNES and ESA logos and all the rest of it, and that funky graphic there, that 6 that's made up of all the different kind of European flags. Spot the Union Jack, anyone? Slap an Indian flag on that thing, and you go, "Oh, cool, yeah, it's the LVM-3." But yeah, if it works, it works. And hopefully this thing works. So we're about 2.5 minutes away.
On the lower stage here we have the picture pictures of the lower stage.
And in just about 20 seconds to 45 seconds, everything should start going on internal power and guidance,
Just 300 milliseconds.
where the rocket will effectively control itself, as if we didn't already know that. I know that you guys are all massive rocket fans. You're all rocket nerds, like me. Here we are, sub 2 minutes now, as if by magic. The past 20 have just flown by like that, and we're about 1:50 away. Man. In terms of delays, if this thing does get pushed back, they do have an open launch window here. This is not an instantaneous launch like with SpaceX, like with the Vulcan. They can hold, they can call a hold, and they can hold for, about an hour, hour and a half if they need to delay the launch of this thing. The window is open until 11 p.m. BST tonight, but let's hope we don't need that full window. 1 minute and some odd seconds to go. Just fingers crossed, everything should be on internal power as we speak. Let's take a swig of the old Red Bull. Hey, and Red Bull want to come and sponsor.
We
1 minute.
are 1 minute to launch. Our
Minute.
best wishes to all the Ariane 6.
Let's go, Ariane 6. Let's do this.
For today. Good luck, everyone.
Go Ariane 6, gute Reise and bon voyage.
Bon voyage indeed. Okay, we have lost the countdown timer, but everything's still looking good. And I'm going to fire up the audio here for you guys. If this thing does go, it's going to make one hell of a racket. And we want to hear it. Let's wait for that final count, which will be in French.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7,
Here we go. Here we go.
4, 3,
Yes.
2, 1, top.
1. Oh!
Décollage.
Yes! Yes! It's cleared the tower. Damn! Bravo! Well done! Go, go, go. Come on, come on.
Position nominale.
That's looking good. Through the clouds.
Trajectoire nominale.
And you see, I have this on 2 different feeds here, and everything is looking great. Yes.
Europe's new rocket,
Pilotage calme, trajectoire nominale.
Ariane 6, has left the pad,
Good onboard views.
blazing a trail across the equatorial skies. The range operations manager is telling us that everything is going according
Yes.
to plan.
Camera shaken, not stirred.
No, my heart can bump so fast. Oh my god.
Do you know what? It looked like the
Trajectoire
Ariane
nominale,
5.
pilotage calme.
You said that 5 minutes ago. The way that thing bounced off the pad, it was the Ariane 5. What's taking you guys so
Oh my
long?
gosh. This is happening.
Good, this is...
It's the most incredible feeling. We're on the edge of tears here.
That is a
in the
clean
commentary box,
plume.
because this is a big day and a big
Yes.
moment.
So about another minute,
Trajectoire
maybe?
nominale.
Actually, the building's rumbling.
So the
around
side
as well.
boosters go. And if we get a clean
These are the live
detach,
images
then
from the cameras on
they've
board.
done their
We're
jobs.
looking at the booster. We're
But
looking
this,
down.
it's
looking down.
incredibly
One of the two
clean.
boosters, we can see the flames coming
Fantastic
out of that
views.
booster, because of course the
Position de la
boosters,
télémesure pour la station de Saint-Jean, propulsion nominale.
boosters are doing all the work.
They're right there, the
He's telling us
boosters,
that
they are
everything is going
providing a
according to
hell of a lot of the
plan.
power of this thing.
Everything is nominal.
And look at the visibility. We might even be
C'est
able
nominal,
to see the
trajectoire
separation.
nominale.
This is looking good, guys.
We have clear skies tonight.
I don't
this
know,
afternoon.
I don't know whether I'm
have
genuinely
the
surprised or not
Clouds parted.
that this has worked.
The 2 dots there.
There we go. Booster set.
There we see them falling.
Oh,
Position des ESR.
Front
clean
This is
separation. Good.
So,
And
wow,
she's
that's the
on her
first
way to
tracking here
space.
that we see. What a beautiful look.
Yeah, Gav.
And
Good
our
tracking as well.
cameras
We
On
see
board.
Propulsion nominale, trajectoire nominale.
And you see it, look at the
Because it's
icing.
happening with a 20 seconds
The
delay,
detail
which
is
why we have to-
fantastic.
Now, look at this, how they fall off. Wow,
Great, that's
amazing.
great
So these
views.
boosters, they have transported us 60 kilometers high.
Fantastic.
And we can
And
see
she's
that
still
right
going.
as the-
Nominale.
Everything is
telling us that
going
the trajectory is normal, everything going according to plan.
as it
That's
should.
the
It's nominal.
engine on the main stage that you can see
great-
there, and we've got a camera.
Great
inside
camera
there. What are we
inside the
looking
fairing,
at?
so
Oh,
we're
yeah,
going to
back down
see
at Earth.
payload
This was actually a
deployment.
camera inside the
Maybe?
entry stage, so we will
If they
be
keep
able
the
to
feed
see
running?
when the lower
I don't know.
stage separates. That's coming up.
If we're going to see
But now
that.
we have actually lost half our mass already because the boosters have burned
Yeah,
almost
the
300 tons of
tracking-
fuel in
the
2
tracking's
minutes.
still on
Égale,
point.
Trajectoire nominale.
Everything nominal.
They have-
As
And we're
the range
getting-
They've
operations
upped their
manager
game.
says.
Yes, and we're getting close
What
now
we were
to
saying.
the next thing, which will be the jettisoning of the fairing. The fairing being the
Yeah,
nose
what we
cone
were saying a little while ago.
launch vehicle.
We hope that
Which is
the
where
camera feeds they're going to give us now are better than what we had with the Ariane 5.
La coiffe.
You even see the wow. That's amazing.
That's a little.
We had confirmation there that the
There we go.
fairing
That's
has been
clean.
jettisoned.
Once when it's working.
Yes. So the fairing that was protecting our spacecraft
This is-
withstands all the pressure and the heat.
Have they
and,
deployed- have they
we
deployed the
stuck our
fairings?
nose out of the atmosphere. We didn't need her
We're
anymore.
back to these graphics
It's been
again.
jettisoned.
So what we're looking at now is the main stage, which is what we're burning and on the
Ye-
right
yes, yes. Fairings deployed. Fairings have deployed. You can see them.
We see them.
That's good. That's good. That's clean.
and
Amazing pictures.
At least we've got confirmation there, and she's on her way
Propulsion.
downrange.
Exactly. And we also see on the screen on the right side.
It's
actually
great.
the telemetry. So on the top, you see the trajectory.
300 some odd kilometers downrange and still accelerating.
Astral flight trajectory, everything going nominal. So you have altitude over
And she's
time.
in
In the
space.
middle, you see our ground track. You see exactly where we are over the Earth, and on the right side, you see our altitude. We're
Good.
in 140 kilometers.
Trajectoire
Distance
nominale,
away
il reste
from
moins de
where we
3
are
minutes de
would be
Now,
propulsion.
this is not going to be a particularly long flight for the Ariane 6. Of course, it is.
Main
At
stage
the
is,
end of the day, it's a technology demonstrator mission to make sure everything works. So, expect
fuel.
a relatively quick flight here.
So it is a
But this
52
is all
meter,
looking
high,
fantastic. This
um,
is going to go some way
weighs 23
to
tons when it's empty, and
reinforcing
it's
confidence in European spaceflight. And like we said at the outset, like we've been saying kind of all week,
the boosters,
Europe needs this.
technical audience, we
And
don't
so far, everything is performing beautifully and as it should. It's now 440 kilometers downrange,
five.
and it's still going.
Very powerful
Propulsion
engine
nominale, trajectoire conforme.
Fantastic.
He's telling us that
I couldn't be happier. I could be happier if that booster could come back down and at least be recovered. But, yeah, this is great. This is
Il reste moins de 2 minutes de propulsion du Vulcain.
telling us that there's
much like previous Ariane launches, though it's hard to tell if ground operations team are happy. Operations director there, he's concentrating, and that's about it. But inside, there must be this groundswell inside of just, yes, we've done it. But being the professionals that they are, they don't shout it from the rooftops. That's our job. It's our job, but
main stage because of course we
let's go. So,
each sector of the rocket as we
is that Miko? Or is it still going?
fly to the other fast
I get a better view here.
operating the next stage, but that's actually quite a complex
There's-
process, isn't it?
Indeed, because you have to
Trying to have a look at the telemetry here as we're about 6.5 minutes in, but
guidance algorithm, and afterwards the voltage
yeah, that looks like Miko. Those dots at the bottom,
separation of the stage,
I imagine that's Miko, and we should be getting
actually extending a set of springs.
first stage separation
The lower stage does to get rid of
any minute.
the upper stage, or the other way around, to push itself away from the upper stage.
I think, again, it's amazing. You compare this to how spoiled we are with other launches and the amount of telemetry that we can get on screen. I think it maybe because in Europe we don't give you all the information. You know, if you're watching a TV show or a movie, we like you to think, and the same applies to rocketry.
Main engine cutoff that's coming up in a few
No.
seconds.
Well, on the feed, they're saying that Miko's coming up in a few seconds, but I'm furiously looking around my feeds here to see.
Extinction du moteur Vulcain.
We have confirmation that Vulcan has switched off.
Séparation LLPM.
And we have stage separation.
So he gets
Fantastic.
before we can see them.
Yes. So,
Allumage du moteur
these 307 kilometers in altitude, 900 and some odd kilometers downrange. The second stage is on its way. It's going to deploy those payloads. Fantastic. It just keeps on going. Look at that.
nominal.
Bro. That's exactly what we needed.
The engine also.
No, Jim, not rocket science at all. But these views are what we need. Yeah, let's hope that that's the standard. Are we going to see it? Yeah.
You see the color changing on the Vinci engine?
Engine chill and look at it.
Sitting up. Beautiful. And you can see that we're actually up there right now.
Brilliant.
So you can see that we lifted
Look
off
at it,
from the
as that
pad here
second
of the
stage
Guiana
engine
Space
starts
Center,
up.
heading northeast, our altitude
La propulsion est
373,
nominale.
traveling at nearly 4 kilometers a second, propulsion normal. And look at that, Tina,
that's-
the curvature of the Earth with the Vinci
That
engine
is
burning away.
absolutely beautiful.
And here we hear calling out that the APU, a new feature actually on the Vinci, on the upper stage of Ariane 6, has also switched on. So there's a lot of
Brilliant.
good news coming in here. Because the big innovation actually of Ariane 6 is, of course, the reignitable Vinci engine. It can switch on and switch off, and it does that by the help of the
Yeah,
APU.
maybe we've
We'll
been-
talk more about the
Propulsion
APU later.
nominale.
Maybe we've been spoiled
also running
with
as
reignitable
planned.
second stage engines. With the likes of the Falcon 9, but this is a
No,
new
no,
thing.
first,
This is it's not.
Vinci burn phase, and we will
you know,
reignite the Vinci engine twice in this mission. A big shout
I can
out here for the
reignite it twice. Yeah.
German
So this
cooperation.
isn't. It's not a
The
burn
upper
and
stage is
go, a
designed and
one
built
and
by
done.
Group
This
in
this
Bremen in
engine can
Germany,
shut
and the
off. It
engine
can
is
take
designed in
different
Rouen in
payloads to
France,
different
and the whole
altitudes.
stage has been put under test
And
in
it's
Lampolshausen.
really they market this
brand new
rocket
test
as
bench
as
designed by the
modular,
German
as
Space
flexible.
Agency, the DLR.
It can
And,
do what you
that's
want when you want it to and as you need it to.
Support
And
immensely.
this is a feature of it that simply the Ariane 5 didn't have. So
The first Ariane 6 is off the ground.
the fact that this is working, the Vinci is good. Those Vulcain 2.1, well, that Vulcain 2.1 engine was great. Everything has worked amazingly as it should. And yeah, we're probably going to get a pre-made rundown again of the Ariane 6's progress to first launch and first flight. Just utterly fantastic. I think we've all repeated ourselves over the past sort of 40 minutes, but it worked. And just like that, Europe is back in the space game. It's 8 British summertime at night, and Europe's back, baby. I'm really glad to see that, because hopefully it will kickstart everything and it will give Europe the shot on the arm it needs to start flying its own payloads. And we talk about, and a lot of people talk about, SpaceX's monopoly on the space industry as a whole. That's true. But I think in a way, if Europe can kind of take back its own launch capability, maybe that will free up more time for SpaceX to concentrate on putting humans on the moon for Artemis and developing the HLS. I don't know. Potentially, there's that kind of caveat there. But yeah, Gab, you're absolutely right. No scrubs, no leaks, no major problems. There were some ground service issues that were basically identified and solved, and here we are. Yeah, the slumber is over. We are back. And Gianna, I forgot to say, I absolutely adore your profile image. I'm a big fan of Farscape, and it's something that I sorely and dearly miss. I may have to go and watch. I don't know, maybe watch it back from the start. What do you guys think? Hey, there's an idea for the next stream. Let's do a Farscape watch along because it was just a damn good show. Almost as good a show as the Ariane 6. And look at that. We've had a segue on X today from space flight to punk rock. And now we're going from rocketry to science fiction. It's like we planned all of this. But let's have a look here at the telemetry. Everything's looking crystal clear. And we're still some time off from the Vinci engine finishing its burn. Thing. So we're expecting at least an 8 to 10 minute burn for that Vinci the first time round, but it's above 460 kilometers. I will have to check that out. I will have to check that out because Farscape is very, very dear to me. As those that know and follow along with me, on the regular, I am at my core a Trekker or a Trekkie, whatever you want to call it. I'm a Star Trek nerd, but Farscape for me as a kid, a younger person, it was one of those shows that just took me the second it was, much like Stargate SG-1 actually. Probably those three formed the bulk of my childhood sci-fi exploration, and yes, to an extent Star Wars as well, but shock horror, I'm kind of more into the kind of harder sci-fi stuff than anything else. And yeah, The Expanse, yeah, hell yeah, The Expanse, it should not have gone away. It shouldn't have. Here's the thing, something it took me a while to get round to, but For All Mankind, I don't know, we're deviating a lot here. I'm interested in all your thoughts on For All Mankind. I thought the first series was very good. The second series, however, kind of lost me fairly early on, but I hear it does pick back up in series 3, so I'm sticking with it. And I'm determined to finish it, but I must admit it's tough going. It's not quite at Walking Dead levels of drop off from being great to being just abysmal, but yeah, I don't know. Sound off. If you've seen it, let me know. But as far as everything goes, yeah, we're still good. We're now, I can see it's decreasing in altitude, which means we are getting close to payload deployment. Oh, the Orville. Okies. Why do you bring up these things? The Orville. Oh, if the Orville does not get a fourth series or fourth season, whatever you want to call it, let's be American. I'm going to be very, very upset indeed. The Orville is, rightfully called, the successor to the Next Generation for a reason. And I think actually when Seth MacFarlane got away from his Family Guy shtick and making it like a Family Guy or an American Dad in space, really, that second half, that back end of Series 2, and especially Series 3, it just became something of its own. It was beautiful. The stories that it told in Series 3 in particular were so well done. Particularly, this is something, and not to go up kind of political, but we've seen this over the past kind of few days. It's the whole, transgender kids argument. The Orville makes an absolutely beautiful story about self-determination and all that stuff. And we're not gonna go into these arguments here, but it was heartwarming. It really was. So if there's any of you guys that have not seen Series 3 of The Orville, then do yourselves a favor and watch it. If you're expecting Family Guy in space, it's absolutely not. Close your eyes and you could just be watching The Next Generation, albeit with different characters. It's absolutely beautiful. And, You're right. Sometimes it's worth spending money on these services so that we can binge all this amazing stuff. But we're still going. The Vinci engine, it's still burning. It's still going for the meantime. No problems. And from what we're seeing here on the telemetry, I know we don't have much, and in fact, in the way of other kind of telemetry feeds, no problems. No problems. So after all of that, after years in development hell, we get a launch that worked. It just worked. Hey, Rich, how you doing, dude? I hope you're well, and I hope you've loved watching this thing fly as much as we all have here. I don't know, do we go so far as to say this was the launch of the year? So far? Possibly. So we were expecting between an 8 to 10 minute burn for the Vinci, but it is reignitable as well. That being said, it does have the capabilities of pushing for longer. Because it's reignitable, you can get 2 of those burns. So
Fantastic news.
And we are where we should be at a speed of 7.56 kilometers per second, as you can see here. Everything nominal.
Everything nominal, and it's now settled in to its cruising altitude.
And travelling at nearly 8 kilometers per second.
But we are at peak speed, 7.5 kilometers a second, or roughly 17,500 miles an hour.
Everything nominal.
Everything nominal. So that's happy faces all round.
Well,
Yes, and
I
this is
highly
actually where
recommend
Ariane
that
5
you
would
go back
stop,
and
its
rewind
mission. We could
and
now
watch
transfer
this.
orbit to geostationary orbit, but with Ariane 6 we actually
I'd like to see it again. I would like to see a replay of that, of the launch, because the way it leapt off the pad, I think we alluded to it earlier.
So
Man,
we're going to be taking a break.
it was
in
good.
A minute.
Yep.
Because we.
So they have confirmed the engine has shut down. I know we're seeing the telemetry. It can't always be trusted necessarily. We've seen that with other launch providers. That sometimes it's a false flag. I think the most obvious example of that this year was Intuitive Machines moon landing with Odysseus. We couldn't tell if it was upright or on its side or what the heck it was doing. But everything seems to be good. There's slight delays, I think. But that's just another example of this launch, that everything seems to be on point. So, yeah, this was roughly, about 10 minutes that thing burned for. And if we can get another thing here, just have a little look at the telemetry. In fact, if we all look outside our windows, if we have a look at this here, it indicates that it will be flying over the UK. I don't know if that's true. I was trying to get it earlier on. Another kind of view of this, but yeah, it does seem to indicate that it will be flying over the UK. And in fact, in Scotland in particular. This is what I was interested to find out earlier on, the exact launch profile for it. And things out there, they're not necessarily trustworthy, but you can see it's now under the guise of the European data collection centers and the tracking stations. So fantastic, because obviously we want to show that those work. And I do believe that Goonhilly will be providing tracking services as well. See here. No, I didn't see it. But now that you've said that, I will absolutely have to check it out. And yes, we are doing very, very well indeed. See, the live commentary will resume in half an hour for them. The upper stage, the Ariane 6, is in coast phase. Everything is going nominally. There's not much more to say than that. It's just... it's worked. It worked. It launched. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull this up and try a replay of the launch for you guys. Where are we going? We're going to have to go back here. I've not done this one on stream before, but I feel that a replay is in order, given how good it was. So let me go back. If you bear with me for just a moment. Something never before done on a Tom June live stream. Instant-ish replay. Once we can find it. Yes. Hopefully that will come through. Here we go. And this is for you, Rich.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage 2 ESR, décollage.
Yes. She just went. That's so beautiful, isn't it? It's clean. It's fantastic.
Position nominale. Trajectoire nominale.
Europe's new rocket.
Pilotage calme.
And we did forget to mention
Ariane 6.
earlier on the Ariane 6. It's almost a kind of given with the Ariane family of launchers. This is something the French Space Agency was very, very keen on all the way back in the 1960s, the mid-1960s, is the use of hydrogen to power the rocket. So this is a mix of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. And that's why we're seeing that good, clean orange burn. Now, this is not a Methalox rocket. This is a Hydrolox rocket. And it's another aspect to the Ariane 6, like the Ariane 5, 4 before it, that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's very, very stable. And this is what happens when you light 140 some odd tons of propellant. And it's just gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. So this might be my favorite launch of the year. It just might be. It's so smooth. It's so clean. We got 4,500 kilonewtons of thrust coming out of each of those boosters, and it just thunders in the sky. So here we go. Look at that. And let's watch this all the way through again. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I don't know what else there is to say, but that was an absolute success. Europe is back in space after a year of slumber, and that was so worth it. And do you know what? Even better was you guys joining me yet again. You know, you're absolutely amazing, every single one of you, for sticking with this channel. As we watch the Ariane 6, I will reiterate for those of you that are not on Patreon or on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call these things, release schedule for me has been a little bit off this past month or so, because whilst Saxavord is on its enforced summer break, because the wildlife up there are... yeah, they're doing their thing. The birds and the bees are very active up in Shetland right now. You say there's lots of, post-winter births. At least in the animal population. But it's given me time to go and work on additional kind of projects. And one big project in particular, which will be released on this channel. It's something I'm very, very excited about, and there's a few of you I know watching that absolutely know about it and are getting the ins and outs through regular updates on Patreon. It is a labor of love, and it is taking a lot of the time. So in terms of the regular UK space news, it's maybe not as forthcoming as I would normally like, and especially as the channel keeps on going and going and going. Thanks in large parts to all of you guys, but this project that I'm not going to tell the world about yet. If you want to find out more, you know where to find the information. It's something I've been looking forward to bringing to the world for quite a long time, and I started planning it about a year ago. Rich, thank you so much for joining in. I genuinely appreciate your time, dude, and I hope that you're doing really well right now. Generally, from the bottom of my heart to yours. So, thank you so much, my man. Is Josh covering Gilmore space launch? I don't know, but he really should. Come on. Let's start a campaign. Let's get Josh to Gilmore again. But yeah, so that project has taken up the bulk of my time, and I will continue to work on it until it's released for all of you guys. I really hope that you're going to enjoy it. I am loving making it, and I can't wait to release it. So, but as we've enjoyed the replay of the Ariane 6 launching, bringing Europe back into space, all I can say is thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Again, this has just been everything that we could have expected, and probably more, especially with those amazing camera views. We're going to see in probably about an hour's time more views from the upper stage. Hopefully payloads deployment as well. Again, I'm going to keep this feed on in the background here and watch it all. I will be on social media. You know where to find me. And I will catch up with you guys very, very soon. But thank you so much. Amazing times. Good to hang out and watch this thing actually work. So from me to you, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And ciao for now.